You can see you are streaming already. I don't think there's anyone here yet though. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Streaming already.
Hi guys, good afternoon and welcome to the live coding session for the current stage. And I hope you can see my screen already. I think I'm sharing a VS Code screen. So in
We
this
can see you.
stage, yeah, thank you. So in this stage, we'll be talking about what Kubernetes is, how how it is being used, exactly what it is being used for, and then we'll go on to do a brief setup of Kubernetes on local system because I have Kubernetes on my
Hello,
local
sir. Please,
system.
can you help us project your voice louder, sir? Please.
Yeah, no problem. So I was saying that in this stage, we'll be discussing about Kubernetes. I'll be talking about what Kubernetes is, what it is used for, and how it relates to the course as a data engineer, and even in some other aspects such as DevOps. And we'll also be looking at a brief introduction to setting up Kubernetes on a local system. So if you have gone through your course content, you'll find that all of these details are included in your local system, but we'll just be doing a brief talk on them. So the first thing we're talking about is trying to briefly explain what is Kubernetes in short. So what is Kubernetes and what Kubernetes is being used for in a very short way. So Kubernetes is a container orchestration tool, and I believe you must have seen this in I believe you must have seen this in your course contents. So what do we mean by container orchestration tool? So I believe you all know about something called Docker, and Docker is a containerization application. So what Docker is, and apart from Docker, there are many more others, is a platform that enables users to package applications. And what do you mean? Sorry, what do you mean by package? What we are trying to imply is that before now, when moving codes around over the internet, when moving codes from one environment to another, most times people had to move the source code directly. So one way that people were able to overcome some of the issues that encountered that we mostly encountered for moving source code directly was to share zip files. So I think we all understand what zip files are. So when you have a file, you can zip it you can zip all of those files together into one bundle and call it a zip file. So we have like the normal .zip, there's even .rar for whatever kind of zip, .7z and all of those kind of zipping. So what these do is that when you share a zip file, each of the files that are embedded in that zip file, they are not copied singly. Each of the zip file is copied as a whole. So if over the way, let's say something happens that allows the copying of the zip file to be unsuccessful, so rather than having your source code file or whatever file it is that you're trying to move about, rather than having it um not complete in the new environment, in the new directory. So let's say you are trying to copy from folder A to folder B, and you have 5 files that you want to copy from folder A to folder B. So if you were copying each of the files, so let's say you just selected, you did a control A, for example, and you try to copy all of the files from control A to control B, and something happens midway, what will happen is that um your files will not be complete in a way. But when we are using zip files, it will ensure that if anything happens midway, the whole of your zip file is not going to get copied. So let me probably try and show this in okay. So I believe you can see my folder structure now. So let me create a new file here, a new folder. Let me call this folder one. Okay, sorry, folder one. Okay, let me open this in a new tab, and then let me create a new folder called folder 2. Control Shift N, and I'll call this folder 2. Okay, and let me open this, let me create this in a new tab. So these two folders are both empty. So let me now create some files here. So let me right click, new, a new text document. Let me call it first.txt. Okay. Let me call this one too. But these are very, very simple files. I don't think they'll be actually very, very fast in copying. But I hope I'm able to showcase what I want to showcase. Let me call this second.txt and create a new one. The more the better. Okay, text document. Let me call this thild.txt. Okay, so now let me copy this tree. Let me highlight them, Control C, and then let me go to folder one and let me paste them. But why? So just like I said, it is too fast. Okay, let me try and look for a large file, sort of. Sorry, let me just try and look for something that is a bit on the high side that I can use to showcase what I'm trying to show here. So let me probably pick most of these images here. Or okay, no, I think I have a list of data sets in one of these folders. So let me open exactly. So let me pick all of this, Control C, and then let me go back to folder and let me paste this here. This is actually too okay. I want something where we'll see the process of being copying, so we can just be able to cancel it while it is doing so. Okay, so let me take all of this again and then take this back to that particular folder. Control V. Okay, so I think this should be enough to showcase what I want to do. So let me delete this zip file here. Delete. Okay, so now let me select all of these files. So let's say all of these files were source code files, and I want to do a copying from folder one, and I want to copy all of them into folder two. My my laptop is fast, sorry, so I can't really, it's not allowing me showcase what I want to. So let me just try and look for bigger files. Okay, and then I think a video would also do nicely. Control C. So let me come back here. Nah, that was not what I wanted to do. Okay, DLCS. So yeah, let me paste this here. Exactly. So this is what I wanted us to see, something like that. So let this get completed. So I think I can even delete most of these even and just work with those files. So I will not clutter us with too much files. Let me delete this and then let me paste this to here. Exactly. So this is wonderful enough. So let's assume these files were source code files, and then I want to move this. So in the process of moving source code files, so we have all of these source code files that are separate. So I'm going to do a Control C just as I've been doing here, and I'm now going to go to folder one. Okay, so let me paste this. So let's imagine that while this was being pasted to a new folder, okay, I think I need to copy them again. So while this was being pasted to a new folder, there is not enough space. Now that is shocking. What's the hold up? So let me just Control C for this particular one. So let me try and paste this here. So this is copying. So let me say something happened and it got cancelled. That was so fast. Let me paste it again. And while it is copying, it got cancelled midway. So you can see if you go to DELCS 698, let me try and copy this too and save it to go. So I'm trying to show you what it means when, why would I be having space issue at this particular point in time? So let me just try and get something to delete. I'll probably be able to get me off my recycle bin. Downloads, videos. Okay, so invincible, yeah, I think I can delete all of this control. Exactly. Okay, so yeah, I should have enough space now. So let's go back here, and then in our original folder of DELCS. So let's try to copy all of this into folder one. So while this is happening, imagine I just cancel the operation. So you can see that because of an issue that occurred in the copying process, not all of my files from this particular folder got moved to the new folder. Let me open it in another folder. Open in a new tab. Yeah. So not all of my files. So out of the three files I was trying to copy, just one. So imagine it was not even a copying process now. So let's assume that rather than a copying process, I was doing a moving process where I was moving the files. So let me do um cuts. So I'm cutting these files and I'm going to try to paste them here. Control V. Yeah, I'm going to be placing this file. So let's say while it is happening, so moving happens faster. So I was not able to do what I wanted to do. So everything should be back here. So let me see if I can do it in real time. So while this is moving, but I think you get the gist of what I was trying to show you already. So imagine this was the cut process for a lot of files that would take time to paste. And while that was going on in the back end, something happened to the process of copying. What will happen is that in the new environment, your files will not be complete in that new environment. So you can see in this particular folder, we have three files: video edit 480, video edit 720, and MySQL. But in the new folder, we are having just MySQL installer, and we also have another video called video edit. But something happened in the process, and this video edit file, if I try to play it, you would see that it will not play completely, because while the file was being copied, there was an issue in the copying process, and that allowed the file to stop. So one thing that we were able to use to get over this is that rather than copying all of these files singly, we can bundle them into a zip file. So if I compress all of this into a file and call this, so let the zip file just might take a while because the files are quite large. So what the zip file does is that when you're having a zip file, you won't be having these issues where two out of your files are copying. As long as something is happening to the process of copying your zip file, if your zip file does not get copied completely, then no files get copied. Your zip file will just return. So you understand that okay, there was a process, there was an error when we were copying this file, and then we couldn't copy it completely. So you will not be working with incomplete source code files that will later let you run into an issue. So that was good and fine for files like this that are static, that just contains the code. But what now happens when you are trying to move a deployed application, an application that is running already, an application that is how do I put it? Let me say, for people that have some experience with Python, you have your Python application running, but you then want to move your Python application from one particular environment to another environment. Zip files will not be able to solve the problem, because zip files can only hold static files. They cannot hold running files or applications that are live already. So that is what Docker and container orchestration give to us. So it gives us a means where when we have deployed these applications, when we have deployed these applications, we can now bundle these applications as a Docker container and then move them from one environment to another without being scared that some files in this environment would have changed. So basically, when you have a Docker container, as long as the Docker container gets created successfully, you are sure that in every location, be it a Windows operating system, a Mac operating system, a Linux operating system, no matter the operating system that your no matter the operating system that your laptop, or sorry, I mean your environment, your application is finding itself. So the operating system are what we call environment. So no matter the new environment, the new operating system the application is going to get into, it will still work as expected, because what you are moving about is a container rather than the source code files. So that was what Docker container gave to us, and this was what really helped in the microservice architecture of deployment. So microservice, previously we used to have an approach where you code all of your apps in one particular environment. So every of your backend, your front end, everything is existing together, and you deploy everything together. But with the popularity of containers and orchestration, so we're able to now start splitting deployments. So okay, we have one particular deployment for the backend, another one for the front end, and such like that. So let's bring that to data engineering and data warehouse and DevOps. So basically in AI, so what we now use this to do is that we have dockerized versions of our data. So we might have, let's say you are working on an AI project that needs to do something daily about weather updates. So you cannot work with static data. You have to keep ensuring that your data is filled daily with the latest update of the weather. That's number one. And let's also say that for that particular application, you want the application to understand when it is wrong. Yes, we know the recording has stopped, but we are still live streaming on YouTube, so there's no issues with that. Everything is still going to be present on YouTube. So you want the AI application to also be able to understand that its prediction was wrong. So let's say today being Thursday, your AI application predicted that tomorrow is going to be a day of rainfall, sorry. And then on the next day, when the updated data, sorry, when the day actually comes, the next day, the prediction of your AI model is wrong. So instead of rainfall, you had a sunny day. But you don't want to keep stopping your model to retrain it to understand that okay, you made the wrong prediction, we have to retrain you and stuff like that. So we want a continuous flow. This is where data engineering come in, where you want a way to engineer our data such that our model is always going to be fed with updated data, that okay, these are the current weather, these are the current actual weather attributes. The temperature, there's no rainfall, it is sunny, and these were the ones that he predicted. So based on this, the AI model is able to learn that okay, I made this particular mistake on this day, and then it is already able to update its knowledge base, that kind of stuff, so that it will keep making better predictions. So one of the ways that we can ensure that this happens is we can have a pipeline where a container contains the process of moving our data to ensure that we can always get live data, and we can always provide this live data to the AI model. So the issue now came up, okay, we have solved the issue of having a package where we don't have to worry about the operating system of the environment. We are just sure that once we are done with our programming and once we have deployed this in every environment we are going to be deploying to, it is going to work no matter what operating system the environment is, as long as it is being built with the same container orchestration, the same container package, it is going to get deployed successfully. So what now happens when we have a lot of containers? So it's easy to manually manage one container. It's easy to manually manage two containers. It's easy to manually manage up to 10 containers. But in a very, very large organization setup, a large organization workflow, it is not going to be easy to manage more than 100 containers simultaneously manually. So we needed a way where we can automatically manage all of these containers to ensure that everything is running as expected in these containers. And anytime there's an issue, we can immediately sort it out or point out where there's an issue without having to manually look through 100 different containers to find where there's an issue. Another reason why we needed a tool to be able to manage these containers is that imagine in a scenario where um your users increased for a particular number of periods. So let's say the kind of people you are serving, let's say you are someone that serves a school, for example. So you know that between 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning, the number of users for your service is not going. I'm talking about secondary schools in Nigeria. So we know the operation time for secondary schools is 8 a.m. in the morning to around 6 p.m. in the evening. So you know that between 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning, the number of users will decrease drastically. But you don't want to stop your service because it is possible there can be students that will like some extracurricular time and will want to use your service, let's say between the hours of 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. So you don't want to stop your service, but you also want to ensure that you're not using services that are redundant. how can I explain this? So let's say in a cyber cafe, we always, I think we all here, I mean at least most Nigerians should be experienced with what a cyber cafe is, where we go to pay money to browse. So in a cyber cafe, these guys, they can purchase around 30 computers at a time. So you must have entered the cyber cafe at one point or the other where out of 30 computers, just 4 computers are being used currently at that point in time. So basically, 26 computers in that cyber cafe are redundant because there is no use for them, but they are paid the cost to get all of these computers and they are not being used. So imagine even these cyber cafe guys had a way to ensure that whenever they had more up to 30 customers that needed 30 computers, they were able to present 30 computers, and immediately the number of computers they needed gets reduced. Okay, those 4 customers, they are able to only present those 4 customers. So this will ensure that they are not paying for redundant services that are not needed. So this is the same way when we deploy applications. So there might be times where the need, that's usage time, increases. So we need to scale up or scale horizontally, either of the two, to ensure that we have enough capacity to handle this uptime. But what now happens if we are the one manually doing a scaling up, and then when the downtime comes in terms of number of requests, then we now have to manually do the scaling down also. So these were the issues that were present, that that demanded that there was a service where this service could automatically handle all of these things for us. So what this service does, it automatically checks the health of each of the Docker containers to ensure that each container is working as expected. It also handles the scaling up and scaling down to ensure that whenever we want to scale up, our pods are replicated to meet demand, and when it is done, we scale back down to ensure that we're not using different resources. So the name of this tool is Kubernetes, and it was created by Google. So Google initially created this tool as an internal tool for themselves, for their application, for their company, sorry, for them to orchestrate tools that they were using internally. But they saw how versatile and how helpful the tool is, and they decided to open source the tool. So Kubernetes is an open source tool and anyone has the right to use it. But how they make money from this is that most of these cloud service providers, they offer the paid version of Kubernetes. So they don't offer Kubernetes itself as a paid service. What they offer is a Kubernetes service which is paid rather than the Kubernetes itself. So that is what Kubernetes does. So for people that have experience with Docker, you should understand what we mean. But even if you don't have experience, over the course of these live coding sessions, we'll try and show what each of these imply and how what a Docker container is. I think in the DevOps aspect, we did something extensively on this in our last live coding session. So now I'm going to change my screen back to the Visual Studio Code so we can just see. So let me just probably change. Let's go to a com tab. Okay, so let me create a new tab and let us see installing Kubernetes. So let's go to this new tab, and then so I'm just going to go to this installing Kubernetes. So because of how important Kubernetes is, there have been a lot of different versions of Kubernetes, how you can use Kubernetes. So this is the Kubernetes official page for getting started and how you can install Kubernetes. So you can download Kubernetes to deploy a cluster, a local machine to the cloud. As long as you are in the aspect of data engineering, DevOps, or as long as you are in charge of anything about deployment of your machine learning pipelines or even the model itself, you should understand what it means to use things like Docker and Kubernetes, because they are very, very essential and very, very, very versatile to ensure that your environment, your production is working as expected. So this is the documentation. To get started, you can download Kubernetes. So let's go into this particular page to download Kubernetes. So the main tool that enables us to use Kubernetes, we call it kubectl. So that is the command line tool. So as I was explaining to some of the DevOps guy a while ago, for most of the tools we have currently that have a graphical user interface version, they also have a, a command line tool version. So most tools were created, as long as it is in the aspect of programming and computing, they were mostly created at first for Linux. So Windows operating system came out as one of the best graphical user interface versions of operating system. So there was a shift because they saw that users preferred graphical interface rather than command line tools as it was for Linux. So there was a paradigm shift where most computers and most guys had to start creating graphical user interface for most of their tools also. So that is why we can see that for most tools, there's now how to install it for Windows, but then Linux still remains the de facto standard. And when you're working on any platform where you want to make automations or you want you because the main reason why we have most of these tools is we don't want to be the one manually managing all of this. We want to declaratively set up these tools so that they can automatically manage them when there's no human supervision present. So most of the tools you use mostly will be for Linux. But for this live coding session, we'll talk majorly on that of Windows, setting it up for Windows and how you can use it on Windows. So to use Kubernetes, aside from this kubectl tool, which is the command line tool that allows us to run commands for Kubernetes clusters, we also need a tool that can enable our system to hold Kubernetes clusters. So kubectl is just the command line tool. It is not it is not enough on its own to hold Kubernetes cluster. So what we'll be using for this particular live coding session is called minikube. Okay, so if you look at minikube, so if we go into their official page, let me share this current tab that I'm in. So this is minikube, and you can see minikube is a local Kubernetes, making it easy to learn and develop for Kubernetes. So minikube, all you need is Docker. So you can see I've mentioned Docker previously, or a compatible container, or a virtual machine environment and stuff. So basically, what Minikube does is that what this is implying is that for you to start using Kubernetes, you need two things on your system. The first is the kubectl, and kubectl is just a command line tool that allows you to be able to interface with Kubernetes clusters. That's the first thing you need. But then apart from the kubectl tool, you also need the actual local Kubernetes engine. So the engine that will be able to create the clusters, the engine that will hold the clusters, the engine that will be able to manage the clusters and all of those kind of stuff. You need those two tools. So Minikube is available for both Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, same as kubectl, Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So for any distro of Linux you are using, there's a way that you can install Minikube. But Minikube is a little bit bulky, as you will see before the end of today's live coding session. Minikube is a bit bulky. So for systems that do not have enough capacity, that's why you see the 2 CPUs or more, 2 gig of free memory and 20 gig of free disk space. So these are like their basic requirements. So most system meet these basic requirements, but because they have been adding more tools to the Minikube application itself, it has made it a bit larger. So even if you meet the minimum requirements, it might still be tough on your system if all you do is meet the minimum requirements. So basically, for a system to run Minikube in a standard manner, you will need at least 4 CPUs. So that's a CPU that has at least 4 core counts, and then your free gig of memory should be around 8 gig of memory or free memory. So you should have at least a 16 gig, so you be able to run all of this, because these specifications are if you are running just Minikube on your system. But there's no way you can be running just Minikube, because you want to run other applications and stuff while you are using your Minikube. So another lighter version is called Kind. So if you look at Kind orchestration, let me just add orchestration to this particular orchestration to, or let me just add Kind Kubernetes. Yeah, exactly. So Kind is a
Your
it's
screen
a
is still on mini keep start, please.
yeah, I'll share this current tab. Yes, so you can see Kind now. So Kind is a lighter version. It's a tool that runs local Kubernetes clusters also using Docker, container nodes, and the stuff like that. So Kind was created using Go, and it makes it a bit lighter, because the guys that created Kind created it with the aim of making it very much lighter on systems. But a drawback is that Kind is not available for Windows operating system. So for you to use kind, you either need to set up WSL2. So you can see they have a version here. So this is WSL2. WSL is Windows Subsystems for Linux. So because they could not make it available out of the box for Windows operating system. So Windows also, knowing that some of its users might want some Linux tools to operate on their system, but they will not want to go through the stress of reinstalling a Linux operating system. So Windows provided a tool called WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, that enables users to be able to run Linux commands or Linux applications that are not GUI enabled. So as long as you want to run a Linux application that does not require graphical interface, you can use your WSL to run any Linux distro and work with them. So kind is very, very easy to install. It's also lighter than Minikube, but you need to have if you are using a you need to be a Linux user, or you have to ensure that you are using WSL2 before you can do this. So let me go back to kubectl. So when you want to install kubectl, so you can, there are even container images, but we won't go to this. So you can install on Windows. To install kubectl on Windows, if you go into this particular page, all you just have to do to install kubectl on Windows, these are the two options that you have. So these to set up, there are some tools, most of these programming tools that require command line interface. And when you want to set them up, there are no, most times they don't have ready-made .exe applications or .msi applications that you just double click. So they expect that people that want to use these tools are programming compliant. Basically, they are programming compliant and they are able to follow set up installations. So to install kubectl, I think there are actually there are two different versions. There's also a version that you can use where you can use kubectl, but I think that was a previous method. So now that they have updated, there's no, that option is not available anymore, because previously they used to they used to provide a binary file that you can add to your part, but I won't be going into that now. So to install kubectl on your Windows, you need using call. So to use call, all you just have to do is to open your PowerShell. Okay, so when you open your PowerShell, you have to just you can just copy this command basically. So when you copy this command, let me go back to my Visual Studio Code. So let me share that particular page. Notebook. I don't think we are not. I've not been using anything called notebook for these particular sessions. For sessions like this, it's technical, so we don't actually use most of everything I've mentioned, at least everything I've said from the beginning of the session, at least, or apart from the examples I've tried to give, are existent in the notes for the course. I mean, stage C course, where we are talking about Kubernetes. So everything about orchestration tool and all of the likes about Kubernetes, everything is present in your course content. So I just try to break it down in a more understandable format. So I've not been using any notebook, and for most of these sessions, such as this, will not be using notebooks and the like. So so when you go to the Minikube official page, sorry, the kubectl binary official page, when you do that, all you just have to do is, I've copied the command there, and you need to have call. So for every system, every computer system, so even if you don't have VS Code, you can just use PowerShell or command prompt on your system, and with that you can run all of this. So once you just run this command, so as long as you have data connection, call is going to install this correctly, kubectl.exe. That's basically what we have here, and it's getting downloaded already. So I have downloaded this, but it is still going to get downloaded in the part of whatever particular whatever particular part you are downloading it to. So let's just wait for this to get downloaded. So this is the latest version. So yes, just as I was saying, so when you download the kubectl.exe file, so this is just, let this just get downloaded. Then the next step, so after you paste this on your programming language, on your terminal, sorry, the next thing you have to do is to add it to parts. So the process of adding it to part, I'll show it for people that are using Windows. So that's the That's the easiest way to ensure that you are using Windows. So easy way um another easy way for you to do it is to use Chocolatey. So when you download using Chocolatey, as you have seen on the web page, you don't need to add to part anymore, because Chocolatey is an installation tool that was released currently for Windows that allows people to install binary packages, and it automatically adds them to your path for your Windows operating system. So I don't know, this is taking quite some time. I don't know, I think my bandwidth is lower than expected, and this is we have downloaded around 50 MB already, and I think the total should be around 80 MB or thereabouts. So to not waste our time, probably let me just share this particular screen. Let me share this tab. Sorry, exactly. So that's the first method. So the first method is this this that I just showcased here, where we copy this particular command and you paste it. So after you paste that command, you can skip the number two. So because what this does is just a validation to ensure that you're downloading the right tool. So basically, you can skip number two. That's just a validation step. So what you do here is you append or prepend the kubectl binary to your path. So there are a lot of different ways you can add things to your path. So they don't have to show this, because they expect that anyone at this point in time in programming should understand what it means to add things to parts for Windows. So while this is still downloading, probably I'll just try and let me share my full screen so that I can show what it means to add things to parts, so we don't just waste time unnecessarily. Okay, so yeah, I'm sharing my entire screen now, and then let me just come here. So I believe you can see my entire screen now. So to add things to part in your Microsoft Windows operating system, be it Windows 10 or Windows 11 or Windows 7, you just need to search for this in your search bar. So you call it environment variables. So most times they show it. So there are two types of environment variables. There are the system environment variables and environment variables for your account. So if you select the environment variables for your account, what you are just going to be doing is any update you are making is just going to be getting updated for your user account. So we all know that on a Windows system, you can have more than one users. You can have two users, three users, or the likes. So, but most times we are just the only user of our system. So this is not an issue. But in situations where you have more than one people using the account, using the system, or you have two user accounts and you want to probably add porting between the two users. So when you select this for your account, the changes take effect for just the user account that is signed in. So, but as long as you're an administrator, you can edit the system environment variables. So when you select edit the system environment variables, it allows the changes you have made to take effect across every account on the system. So you are editing the system property itself. So after you select that, you see this short icon here, desktop profile. So what we are concerned of is our environment variables. So this is the same process both for Windows 7, 10, and 11. So when you select edit environment system variables, then all you need to click here is to select your environment variable. So when you are done, you see this kind of this stuff. So there are user variables for the users and system variables. So again, so this is for users. So my own user account on this system is called user account. On your own system, you might see like Owolabi or Adeniran or Jennifer or whatever your username is. So that's that. So if you still want to maintain that, you just want to make your edits for your particular user account, you can make the changes here. But if you want to change it for the system itself, this is what you are changing. So you can see that for both of them, we have something called path, PATH. PATH. So that is what we need to add to parts. So when most times I encourage people to just edit the system variables, because there are times where you make changes for the user, but the tool you are trying to install needs you to edit it for the system variable rather than parts. So it's better to just edit it for the system variable and you'll be good. So when you click on parts, the next thing you need to do is to click on edit. So this is the graphical user interface, the graphical way of adding things to parts with Windows. There's there's a command line way also, but that is a bit longer because you need to have enabled your PowerShell and your tools, and I cannot really be showcasing that currently today to take some time to make those enablement. Not too much time, but then so these are all of the things I've added to my part at one point or the other. And I think I should have Kubernetes somewhere. So you can see I have Minikube on my part already. I have Chocolatey on my part already. I have Node.js. I have Kind. At one point in time, I installed Kind, and I have Kind on my part already. So I don't even think I have Kubernetes itself, the kubectl. Sorry, I don't think I have kubectl on my part anywhere here. So I'll try and do that now. So this is what. So when you want to add a new thing to part, you just need to come and select this variable new. So when you select new, all you just have to do is to now click on browse. So you browse to the location of your PC where the binary that you want to add to part is existing. So what I want to add to part, I stored it in the documents folder. So I'll just be going to the document folder here, this PC. Okay, then under this PC. So don't let me use this PC. I think that's a long way to go. So I should be able to see documents somewhere around there. Exactly. So this is documents, and then another document I have this particular called HWork. Then under Amoye, I have the DELCS, and in the DELCS, I should be able to, I think, is it in the folder one? So this is so it is under the DELCS. So in this DELCS, I'm just going to select OK. And then once I've added this particular folder to parts, as long as there's a binary tool there that is enabled to be used on the part will automatically recognize it. But I'll be deleting this because I don't like just adding random folders. I prefer their particular structures. Most times I ensure that what I'm adding to parts is from a program file. This is done automatically by the program, or you put it in just the C drive. So this was one that I added to Python myself. So the kind, I just placed it on the C drive and I put it in a folder called binaries before I add it to parts. So that's how you can add your kubectl to parts when you are done with your installation. So you can see your kubectl. So when you are done, but then there are a lot of different tools that we have. This is taking quite some time. So there are a lot of different tools that we have that enables us to have kubectl. So on my if I do kubectl version, okay, on unknown usage version, okay, sorry, so it's version clients, so kubectl version, then clients. So you can see that I have kubectl installed. So if you don't have kubectl installed on your system, you will not be able to see this output here that kubectl is giving me. So when you just type in kubectl, you have an error that will tell you that kubectl was not found, or kubectl was not found. So I know at one point or the other, I think based on my installation of Minikube, when you install Minikube, it also automatically gives you kubectl, or when you install Docker. So I think what I'm using is Docker. You can see there's a note here. Docker Desktop adds its own version of kubectl to parts. So if you have installed Docker Desktop before, you may need to place your part entry before the one added by Docker Desktop, or remove the Docker Desktop kubectl. Exactly. So that is why I'm seeing kubectl on my part, because I have not downloaded the kubectl version, this particular version of kubectl. So if you want to ensure that you're using this particular version, you have to ensure that your Docker Desktop kubectl version in your part is not there. So that's one way of downloading. Another way of downloading is to use Choco. So Choco is a package manager. Just like the way for Linux we have npm. Npm means node package manager. For Python we have pip. Pip is Python index packager. So those are package installation tools that ensures that it's work only for that particular programming language or that particular application tool, and ensures that it helps you manage anything that you need to install in an official manner. So Chocolatey package was started recently by some guys for Windows, and it has had wide acceptance among people because it helps you ensure that you are not going through all of the stress of adding to part and all of this kind of stuff. So these are the process you go through to install kubectl. So when you have gone through any of this process to install kubectl, and when you type this particular command on your terminal, be it with VS Code, or you type it on PowerShell standard, or you type it on CMD, as long as you have seen this. And one thing you should know is that if you started the process using VS Code, you might have to close your terminal and start it again, because it takes some time for the terminal on VS Code to get updated with packages. But if you are using things like CMD, they get updated in real time, because these were actually integrated with Windows from the start. So you can see this is my kubectl. So if I do the same thing, kubectl version client, okay, and then I can see my client and all of those kind of stuff. So you can also decide to use command prompt, or you can use PowerShell to all give you the same response. So PowerShell is the default provided to you by Visual Studio Code. So when you are done installing kubectl, the next thing you need to install is Minikube. And then to install Minikube on Windows, it is a very, very easy stuff. So there are three types. So you can download the exe file. So once you download and run the installer, so if you don't want to stress yourself with all of the installation processes, sorry, if you don't want to install the installation processes, you just download and run the installer. So when you download and run the installer, you can see you just download the installer and then you double click your installation file and you are up to good. But if you want to use other versions, for example, if you are using PowerShell, you can use PowerShell to download. So this is a way that you can use your PowerShell to run this, and then to your part, make sure to run PowerShell as an administrator, and then you can run all of this command. But the easiest way to download is to just download the exe using this particular link here. That's the easiest way to download, to start the download for you, and with that you can see the Minikube installer. I've downloaded it previously, so that's why there's a bracket called one here, and that's the easiest way to download it. So once you are done, just double click the installer and then it does the whole process for you. So when you are done installing your Minikube, the next thing you need to do is to just start your Minikube. So I want to try and show you guys what Minikube is trying to do. So Minikube, seeing as they were actually very large for systems, they tried to change how they are now providing Minikube. So previously, Minikube used to be a standalone. So it was an application that used a lot of resources and stuff like that. But then they are pivoted. So now Minikube also works with Docker. So when you download Minikube and you start Minikube on your system, you should see an image called Minikube image. Sorry, so let this Docker engine start, because my system is on power saving mode, so some of my processes are running slower than expected. So when the Docker engine starts, you will see that there will be an image called Minikube. So that Minikube image is the Docker image that powers the whole Minikube. So you can see that even this your local orchestration tool, it also relies on Docker. So this is the Docker container. You can see I have this container here called Minikube. So if I come to my images here, this is the Minikube image here, Minikube image. So this is the image that powers the Minikube. So anytime you say Minikube starts, what happens is that this Minikube container get started. So the last time I started the Minikube container was 6 months ago. It's been a while, because I've not really used Minikube. I just used the Azure version of the AWS version of Kubernetes when I'm working. But then the local Minikube container. So this command here that you can see here, where they say for your terminal with administrator access, run Minikube start. So what this does is that it gives this command to this particular Minikube container that I want these containers to start. So let us come here. So when you install Minikube using the right process, once you type Minikube here, you should also be able to see these commands also. But when you type Minikube and you cannot see any of this, when you just type Minikube, it means Minikube has not been installed correctly on your system. So if I do Minikube and I say start, so you can see that the process is using the Docker driver. So pulling base image is just doing some processes that is required to start the Minikube. If you go back to our Docker desktop now, you can see that this Docker desktop now, before it was exited, it was saying 6 months ago, but now it is running. So you can see that that is what Minikube start is doing. So what Minikube is doing is that Minikube is even leveraging on Docker and containerization itself to try and provide a means for you to just play around using Kubernetes. So what you'll be working with are Kubernetes clusters, and these clusters also orchestrate Docker containers. So these are different Docker containers that I have on my PC currently. So Minikube is also leveraging on this Docker. So you have to wait for this process to complete before you can see it. And then aside from that, when you install Minikube, it also gives you this GUI version of the app. So if I click on open, so what this does is it does gives us, you can see, so unable to resolve, you need to open CMD and run it from there. So that is another way to start minikube. But if this gets started, so it is just doing some configurations that is needed for you to start the minikube cluster. So that you can see kubectl is configured to mean kubectl. So you can see it is giving me this error. So you can say kubectl not found, because this is because I have not installed the actual kubectl tool and added it to my path. What I'm using is Docker's version of kubectl. So to take away this error, what I just have to do is to ensure that I install the right version of kubectl, and then this will not be an issue. But then minikube also knows that it's possible you don't have kubectl, so they provide you with a way to use kubectl using minikube. So minikube itself, so before you just in a case where you don't have kubectl on your system, but you want to and you have installed minikube, you can start with the minikube command and then add kubectl. So minikube will give you a version of kubectl that you can use to interact with different containers that is contained on the minikube. So that will be all for today's live coding session. So today was just a very, very brief introduction to Kubernetes orchestration and what they do, and then just a brief initial setup. So I would love for everyone by the next live coding session, I think that is on Monday, to have installed Kubernetes, to have minikube and kubectl on their system. So because from the next session we'll start creating pods. So because we need to understand what a node is, what a node group is, what a pod is, and how pods relate with containers and those kind of default terminologies. You can see if you need to try minikube ctl. So if I do something like kubectl get pods, so all of this kind of no resources found in default namespace and those kind of stuff. So I think if I just add this, so unknown
Yes, sir.
flag
Thank you,
gets.
sir.
Sorry.
Yes, I have some questions, sir. I don't know if I attend to them quickly, sir, before our time is over.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, thanks so much, sir. Actually very pretty new to UCTL and Co, but I've gone through the materials. Now, my question, sir, is full of time. Number one, you mentioned horizontal scaling. I know scaling may be vertical. What is horizontal scaling about? Then let me rush my questions. Must we learn Linux before we use the WSL2? And also, I want to ask, in the material, they give us options of either Google or Azure. But I have an account with AWS. Can we use it, or we have to pick either of the options given to us?
Okay. Yeah, thanks for your question. So to take them in terms of reducing difficulty, you don't necessarily have to learn Linux before you can use WSL. As long as you want to use your WSL for specific tools, where all you just need are specific commands relating to those tools. A brief understanding of how Linux terminal and how the commands work might be helpful, but you don't necessarily need to learn Linux deeply for you to start using WSL to make use of the tools that you want to use. And then the option of Azure, you can select your AWS is also okay as long as you have credit. So
Yes,
the
I
one
have an
you
account
use
already sometime in
with
January for
AWS,
five
yes.
months.
Yes, as long as you have credit on any of the cloud provider, you can use any of them to try and get what you do. Because when we made those suggestions, we probably used to tell people to use Azure, but then Azure in the past few years have been hectic because of the embargo that I believe most of us here are Nigerian. People outside Nigeria might not be facing this issue, but because of the embargo we have on our credit cards that cannot perform international transactions, because of this, we are limited in the kind of subscriptions we can have for Azure. Because before you can have free credit on Azure, you need to at least provide a valid billing details, which is your credit card. And they reject all of our cards because our banks do not allow us to process, because their their base currency is in USD, and all our banks in Nigeria, at least as of, because I still tried something around last week and it still did not go through. So all of our banks cannot make international transactions. So it was still a bit easy around 2 years ago. Azure still accepted virtual credit cards. So for guys that were using things like cheaper cash, gray, and the likes to run virtual transactions where you have a virtual credit card in USD, okay, we could still, but now we don't advise people to use Azure anymore, because the only way you can use Azure is if you have a credit card with a foreign bank, or if you are using a domiciliary account that has a credit card attached to it. So as you
Okay,
are
so
doing a
now
bit of
that I have AWS, do I need to go and open
yeah,
Waze up? Is that stage?
no.
I
That's what I'm trying to say. You don't have to open Azure, so you can use any of the cloud providers that you want to, because there's no lab associated with this particular course. So we are just trying to show you, so you can do it with your local version of Kubernetes. All of the labs that we have, you can perform them with your local version, and for more experience, you can use any of the cloud provider. You don't necessarily have to use Azure or GCP. As long as you have a cloud provider that you have credit with, then you can
Okay,
use
sir.
any of them because they
Final
all
question,
provide
sir.
this.
In 1 minute, sir. Final question, sir. You mentioned Kubernetes, and you also mentioned Kubernetes service, and I seem to see maybe you won't give a differentiation. And
No,
lastly,
no.
must
Okay.
we
Yeah.
install Docker after Minikube?
Yes, because Docker and Minikube work hand in hand. So the best version is you must have Docker installed on your system before you have Minikube. I mean, that's the best version. You can try. I don't know. There's no time I've tried to
Again,
use. Sorry.
it's
Yes,
missing.
I'll be wrapping up. I'll be wrapping up just now. So there's no time I've tried to use Minikube without Docker. So yes, I will advise you have Docker installed on your system. And then Kubernetes service is just the service provided by the cloud providers. Kubernetes is Kubernetes. Kubernetes itself is the tool. But these cloud providers just try to they name it Kubernetes service because they are providing a service to you by helping you orchestrate your Docker containers using Kubernetes. So they you pay them for that service. But
Thank you
Kubernetes
very
is
much,
the
sir.
main tool that we are using. Yeah. So
I'm
any
very,
further questions, we'll treat them in the next live coding session. So please try and ensure that you have Minikube and kubectl installed on your system, because in the next live coding session, we'll be working with some pods and some node groups. And then in the last live coding session, we'll be talking more about scaling, what horizontal scaling and vertical scaling, the difference between both of them, and how we can set up scaling for our pods. Yeah. So all right, guys, thank you for the live coding session. Bye bye.